I get people who tell me they don't really believe in monsters. They say it like they're being sensible about fear. They talk about statistics and probabilities and how the human brain loves to see patterns in the dark. I don't argue with them. I just picture them alone in a field that doesn't belong to anyone they know, with nothing but a phone light and a whole lot of black space, and I wonder how brave they'd feel if something started breathing near their feet. The night this started, I wasn't thinking about anything bigger than getting the trash down the drive. I had a black bag in my hand that dragged over the gravel and left a quiet scrape behind me. The air smelled like cold dirt and pine bark. The tree line sat close, almost right on the shoulder of the lane. We don't have streetlights out here. We've got porch bulbs and whatever the moon feels like sharing. That night, the moon hid behind a sheet of high cloud that turned everything flat and gray. Halfway down the lane, the bag snagged on something buried. I tugged once, then again. The plastic tore with a thin, sharp sound that carried farther than it should have. Somewhere beyond the ditch, that sound got an answer. It wasn't a bark or a howl or anything I could slap a label on. It came up from the dark like a huge body taking a breath through wet teeth. It pulled the air in slow and deep. I felt it in my ribs before I properly heard it. I stopped walking. I didn't decide to. My legs did it on their own. The only other sounds were the faint hum of the cabin furnace behind me, and the distant tick of the dryer vent cycling. That breath came again, longer than before. It sounded like something tasting air it already owned. The trees across the ditch stood in a solid wall. Nothing moved. Nothing showed. My hand still crept up my chest and clamped down on the front of my jacket like they were trying to hang on to something that couldn't help them at all. Behind me, the front door hinges creaked. Soft steps came down the porch. Gravel whispered under slippers.
Evan.
Lauren stayed close to the square of porch light, like she didn't want her feet to cross the line where the boards ended.
Have you seen a dog out by the road tonight?
Her voice sounded just a little wrong. She was trying to keep it level and missing by a hair. I turned enough to see her and the rectangle of warm yellow behind her. No dogs. Just trash and bad life choices. She didn't smile. She folded her arms and looked past me toward the trees.
I heard something near the back fence. Not the usual owl and branch nonsense. Heavy and slow. It walked past Emma's window and her nightlight flickered, like something big slid between it and the glass.
The second she finished, that wet breath rolled out of the trees again. Longer this time. Closer. Curious. Lauren's eyes snapped back to me.
You heard that too.
It wasn't a question. Yeah, I heard it.
What is it? Tell me it's a deer. Please just tell me it's a deer.
It's a deer, I said, because she needed something and I didn't have anything better. Probably down in the ditch, echoes just weird tonight. She didn't believe me, but she didn't call me on it. Her shoulders were tight and rounded, like she was trying to take up less space under the porch light.
I want you back inside. Now. Lock the door. I don't like whatever that is.
I've got to get this in the can. 2 minutes. Go lock up. Keep Emma away from the windows, all right? She stared at my face, reading more than I wanted her to.
You're not just humoring me. You look like you saw something.
Just a noise. I'm jumpy. I'll be right behind you, I swear. She hesitated for a long beat, then nodded once.
If you're not on that porch in 2 minutes, I'm coming out there with the shotgun.
Deal. She went back up the steps. The door closed. The porch light threw a hard bar across the lane, a bright stripe that stopped 10 feet from my boots. Everything beyond that line felt like a different world. I hauled the torn bag the rest of the way to the trash can. My hands shook so hard I had to use my knee to lever the lid up. I dumped the bag, slammed the metal down, and the can rang once like a bell. The sound ran out into the trees and came back thinner. That was when I saw the eyes. They sat low at first, maybe 3 feet off the ground, just 2 pale discs catching the porch light and flattening it. They didn't shine the way normal animal eyes do. There was no warm spark and no clear pupil. They looked like old, cloudy glass pressed into a face that had never figured out what faces were supposed to look like. It's a deer, I told myself under my breath. It's a deer! You're being an idiot. My hands didn't get the message. They climbed up my ribs until my fingers were digging into my collarbone. The eyes rose while I watched them. They climbed in a slow, steady line, like someone lifting a mast with careful hands. 3 feet, 4, 6. There was no scrape of hooves on gravel, no jolt of antlers catching branches, no rustle of a big body pushing through brush. They kept going. They finally stopped around 8 feet up. Something in the dark stepped forward, just enough that the grass along the ditch folded slightly toward the lane. I heard a soft, wet slap, like a handful of meat dropped onto cold metal. The air changed. The smell that rolled over the lane had weight. Old blood and pond algae and something sweet that had gone wrong inside a sealed jar and never forgiven anyone for opening it. "I'm done," I said to nobody. I don't remember dropping the lid, I don't remember turning, I remember running. The gravel tried to twist my ankles. The cabin porch looked far away in a way that hurt. Behind me, that breath chased me up the lane, longer now and almost delighted. It dragged along the trees and licked down the back of my neck. I hit the steps hard, fumbled the knob, slammed the door, and locked everything we had. Deadbolt and chain and the extra latch. My heart slammed around inside my chest like it wanted to leave without the rest of me. Lauren stood in the kitchen with both hands on the counter. Her knuckles were white.
What did you see? And don't tell me it was nothing, because your face says it wasn't nothing.
There were big eyes in the ditch, too high off the ground and the wrong kind of shine. It moved in a way I didn't like. It smelled wrong. I panicked. That's it.
Was it on the road? Did it come up to the house?
No, stayed near the trash. I got inside before it got curious. She stared past me at the door for a long second.
I want Emma in our room. We're not doing sleep through it and hope it stops tonight.
Agreed. We didn't sleep much. Emma padded out around 2 in the morning, hair sticking up on one side, eyes half closed. She stood in the doorway rubbing her face with the back of her hand.
I heard the big breathing again. Outside the trees, it was going, hey, 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 like it was tired.
It's the wind.
Lauren spoke fast, like speed could make it true.
Wind gets weird in the trees here.
Emma frowned and rubbed her nose.
Wind doesn't smell, not like that.
I didn't ask what it smelled like to her. I walked her back to our room and let her climb between us. I watched the shadow of a branch climb the wall behind her, stretching longer than the branch outside had any right to go. The next morning, I found the tracks. They started near the ditch across from the can. At first, I thought they were just heel marks from a truck that turned around too tight. And then I saw how deep they went. Each oval dent was the size of a serving platter. They were pressed into the mud in a staggered line, like a walking pattern, but they didn't have toes or claws or anything I could match to the field guide stacked by my desk. Each mark ended in a narrow tail at the back where something had dragged free. The line of them crossed the lane, climbed the bank, and went into the trees without breaking stride. The undergrowth should have been broken, it wasn't. Branches hung where they always had, just bent a little, like something had slid through them instead of pushing them aside. Around noon, I heard an engine on the lane, old straight 6, the kind you recognize in your chest more than your ears. A beat-up green Ford rolled into view, paint faded and one fender a different color from some forgotten fix. Ray climbed out with the slow care of a man whose knees have earned the right to complain. Same canvas coat as always, more white in his beard, eyes narrowed from a lifetime of staring into tree lines. He didn't wave. He walked straight to the tracks and stood over them.
You get a visitor last night?
His tone said he already knew the answer. Something like that.
When'd you first hear it breathe?
On the lane, taking the trash down. Then again when Lauren was on the porch. Emma heard it after midnight. She said it smelled. I believe her.
Sounded like what? Give me the closest thing you can.
Like somebody sucking air in through wet teeth. Long and heavy. It felt like it was pulling on my lungs from across the ditch.
You're not exaggerating that part.
I wish I was.
Thought so. Got a call on the scanner before dawn. Old boy on the service road past Cedar Hollow hit something. Said it came out of the trees low and fast and it didn't look like anything he'd seen before.
Did they send anyone out? County or troopers or anybody?
They tried. The dispatcher stayed on the line with him. Then the line went weird. Not static, just breathing that was long and wet. Same sound you just described. Then nothing. They tried to call back. Same breathing. No words, engine noise, crash, or screaming. Just that.
My stomach dropped hard enough that I felt it in my knees. And they called you because?
Because I'm the idiot who listens, and because I was closer than anyone in uniform. The fellow who called it in knows I've got keys to the gate on that road. He also said there were marks in the mud out there that look a hell of a lot like what you've got right now in your yard.
You already went out there?
No, I wanted another pair of eyes and a good reason to think I'm not losing it. Those prints are my reason. So I'm asking, you want to come see what hit that car, or you want to stay here and pretend the breathing in your driveway was a dream?
Lauren stood on the porch with her arms folded tight. She'd heard enough through the open window to catch the shape of it.
If you go, you come back before dark, Evan. I'm not kidding. I'm not putting Emma to bed with something like that loose between here and Cedar Hollow.
I'll be back before sundown. I'll keep my phone on.
You say that like the thing cares about your signal.
I know. I'm going anyway. She looked from me to Ray.
You bring him back. I don't care what you have to do. You bring him back.
I'll do my best.
His voice stayed level, but the promise landed heavy. Emma pressed her face to the window, stuffed bear pinned under one arm. She mouthed monster at me and tried to turn it into a joke with a little grin. It didn't land. The service road into Cedar Hollow hadn't been graded in years. Grass grew down the center strip. Old tire ruts held pockets of last week's rain. Trees leaned in close over the hood and scraped slow lines in the dust on the windshield. We found the car half a mile in. It sat sideways across the road with its front bumper pinned against a tree. One headlight was shattered and the other was dead. The windshield on the passenger side had a spiderweb crack that climbed nearly to the roof. The driver's door hung open. The dome light glowed a tired orange that looked wrong in the gray day. There was nobody inside. Blood streaked the inside of the open door and 4 long arcs dragged outward. They ended in a smear on the ground. Drops dotted the dirt for a few feet, then stopped like somebody had closed a valve. The tracks picked up right where the blood ended. These prints were even deeper than the ones at my place. Mud had squeezed up around the edges and dried in ridges. Whatever walked here carried more weight or moved faster. In one print, partly buried in the churned mud, a torn strip of plaid fabric lay crumpled. The ripped edge looked chewed instead of clean.
The driver didn't walk away from this.
His voice went quiet in a way I didn't like. You still want to follow it?
You think deputies are going to scramble a team over some weird breathing and a wreck way out here? You think they'll push through that sound on the line if it starts up again while they're on the way in? We're here now. Tracks are fresh. We follow them, or we sit in the truck and wait for the part where it decides there's another easy meal parked on the road.
I hate that you're making sense.
You don't have to come with me. I'm not dragging you.
If I stay here, I'm going to sit in that truck and picture it coming down the road until my brain melts. I'm already in it. I'm going. We followed the prints off the road and into the trees. The forest closed around us fast. The sound of the truck and the open sky fell away behind us. The ground felt wrong under my boots. Not soft and not frozen, just loose, like the soil under the top layer had been stirred and never settled again. We walked in single file with Ray in front, rifle held low but ready. I carried mine with the barrel pointed down and the safety off, mostly for comfort. The tracks wound between trunks in a lazy curve. They didn't stagger or stutter. It looked like something had taken a long walk through the world without needing to lift its weight very high. The smell reached us before anything else did. It rolled over us in slow waves, thick and wet and heavy, meat and stagnant water and something sharp and chemical that made my eyes prickle, like old bleach left in a hot car.
I know that smell.
Ray's mouth tightened.
I was hoping I'd never smell it again.
We stepped into a small ring of young maples. A deer hung from them like a grotesque lantern. It had been split neatly from chest to belly and peeled open. Every organ was gone. The ribs were scraped clean. Not chewed and not gnawed. Bare. The head hung at a wrong angle. The eyes were missing. The sockets looked scrubbed. Above the carcass, the main trunk carried a long smear of dark residue, almost black, with a slick sheen when the light caught it. It clung to the bark in a way that looked wrong, like it wanted to keep moving if you stared too long. Ray watched it for a solid half-minute, then stepped closer. "Don't touch that."
I've touched it before. Once was enough. I just need to know this is the same thing.
He pressed one gloved fingertip into the smear. The stuff clung like syrup, then slid a little on its own, fighting gravity. He wiped it on the trunk and flicked his fingers, like he couldn't stand having it on him even through the glove.
Yeah, same as the canal.
The word sat there like a weight. The what? What canal?
Years ago, out past the irrigation ditches near the valley, dogs went missing for a whole summer. One night we found a heifer half-gutted and hanging over the concrete, smeared with this garbage. Same stink and same shine. Nothing came to eat what was left. Not crows and not coyotes and not even flies. Whole place went quiet for a month, then it was gone. Thought maybe I imagined it. I didn't.
We shouldn't be out here. We shouldn't have come in here.
We shouldn't have had breathing at your trash can either. We're already in it.
He spat into the leaves and squared his shoulders.
Tracks keep going downslope. Might as well see where its little parade ends.
We followed. The forest got darker as we moved downhill. Sound leaked out of the world. No birds and no insect buzz. The only noise came from our boots and the occasional clink from Ray's gear. After a while, I noticed the tree trunks around us. Each one had a ring about 7 feet off the ground, a band of dull gray staining the bark. It went all the way around every trunk in sight. "Tell me I'm not seeing that," I said quietly.
You're seeing it. Something wrapped itself around them and slid along, marked its path. I hate that it's smart enough to do the same trick everywhere it goes.
The tracks ended at a shallow ditch that probably held water in wetter months. Right now it was mostly thick mud with a thin skim of brown water in the lowest spots. On our side, an old rusted culvert pipe stuck out of the bank, big enough for a grown man to crawl through if he didn't mind losing some skin. Across the ditch, the trees opened into a wide hollow. The ground there looked scraped and churned, like someone had tried to dig out the whole space and then given up halfway. Patches of bare rock showed through the soil like bones. The prints vanished at the edge.
They go into the ditch and disappear. No exit marks, and no drag, and no nothing.
Could it climb trees? Or move without touching the ground when it feels like it?
Could be both. Could be neither. Could be that it went into the pipe right next to you, and you've been standing beside its front door for the last 20 seconds.
I stared at the round opening. Rust ridges formed a jagged collar. A little dirty water shivered inside. You think it's in there?
I think if it was in there, we'd already know. It likes space and wrapping around things. That tunnel's a tight squeeze for something built to spread. I don't like standing here either way.
His head turned slightly. His shoulders went rigid.
You hear that?
I don't hear anything, I said, even though I already knew that was a lie. The silence had changed. It had weight now.
You hear it. Listen under the quiet.
I shut my mouth and listened. The breath came again. It slid through the trees behind us, long and wet, pulling air with it. Closer than it'd ever been. My chest locked up.
Pipe. Get in the pipe right now. Don't argue. Move.
I dropped to my knees and crawled into the culvert. The metal scraped my shoulders and elbows. The air inside was colder and damp with the sour tang of rust and old water. Ray came in behind me, boots scuffing, rifle cradled awkwardly. We crawled until the pipe dipped. A thin sheet of water soaked the knees of my jeans and the fronts of my hands. We stopped there, cramped and half blind, and waited. Ray faced the opening with the rifle angled up. I pressed my back against the top of the pipe and listened to my heartbeat try to punch its way through the steel. The breath rolled over the mouth of the pipe. It was so loud that the metal hummed with it. The air in front of us turned thick and wet. The smell hit a heartbeat later. Rot and algae and old pennies. It felt like something pressed its entire face against the opening and inhaled our shapes. The light at the rim dimmed. Something blocked the day. I didn't see the whole thing. I saw a wide gray surface slide across the opening in a slow sweep. Skin that looked like it'd been left in water too long, swollen and wrinkled, stretched over something that didn't match human bone underneath. Folds bulged and shifted. No hair and no scales and no obvious limbs. Just a huge flexible wall pressing gently against the lip, then easing back. A soft tapping started on the metal near Ray's shoulder. Delicate and deliberate, like knuckles on a window. The pipe vibrated around us. Mud shifted under my knees. Ray didn't fire. Sweat ran down his temple and cut a clean line through the dust on his skin. The breath came again, more focused now. It dragged at the pipe and the air inside it. My lungs wanted to empty into that pull. My vision narrowed into a bright tunnel. Little white sparks swam at the edges. Something slid along the top of the pipe. The metal sagged slightly above my back, just enough that I felt it in every nerve. I didn't need much imagination to picture that pressure pushing down through skin and bone. Then the weight lifted. Light crept back around the rim. The breath moved away, slow and unwilling, like it'd been interrupted in the middle of a good meal. Twigs snapped somewhere outside. Tree trunks creaked in that way they do when something heavy brushes them. We stayed silent, softer sounds followed. A faint, dragging rasp. An occasional thick slap like a wet tarp dropped onto mud. After a while, water dripped from shaken branches. A crow gave one nervous cry and then another with more confidence. The forest started to remember how to be a forest again. Ray finally let out a breath that sounded like it had been stuck for twice as long as it should have.
It knows we're in here, and it walked away anyway. That's not the part I like.
Which part do you like?
None of it. The part I hate is that it's smart enough to decide we're not worth the effort right now.
We backed slowly out of the pipe, eyes on the opening. When we stepped into the clearing again, the hollow looked empty. The ring of stained trunks felt like a circle of old scars. We should go. We should get to the truck, call the county, call whoever will listen, and then never come back.
If we walk out right now, it's going to come up over the ridge tonight and follow whichever scent it likes best. It's got your trash already, your driveway and your chimney. It remembers your house. We need to give it something else to think about.
And that's going to be what? A lecture? A pamphlet? A strongly worded letter?
Fire. Fire's what animals remember, even the ones that are wrong in the head.
He pointed at the debris scattered around the hollow. Old branches and rotten pallets and logging trash.
We pile this against the worst of the marked trunks. We use the gas can in the truck, we light it, and we make it hurt. We don't have to kill it. We just have to convince it this side of the ridge is a bad idea.
You've done this before?
I've tried. Didn't have help last time.
We dragged what the clearing gave us into a low, messy pile near the largest stained trunk. Ray went back for the can and sloshed the last of the gas over the heap. Fumes crawled up my nose and made my eyes water. You sure about this?
No. But I'm sure I don't want that thing 100 yards from your front door thinking it owns the place.
We lit the pile and backed away. The fire caught slow, then jumped when the gas took. Flames climbed the wood and licked up the bark. Heat rolled across the hollow. Smoke crawled up the trunks in thick black sheets. Resin popped and flung sparks into the damp air. The sound that followed didn't build. It dropped. One moment, the only noise was the crackle of fire. The next, every tree around the hollow shivered. Gray slime on their bark glistened as something moved along it. The ground trembled under my boots. The air turned colder even with the flames in front of us. It came in from the right, low and fast. I saw it clearly for the first time and I wanted to unsee it. Imagine a centipede made of human torsos, I thought later when I tried to explain it. Bodies swollen and pale, fused shoulder to shoulder in a long flexing column, every chest rising and falling in the same slow rhythm. No arms and no separate legs. The lower halves merged into a single long underside that slapped the earth in heavy ripples. Where heads should have been, there was nothing. All those bodies fed into a single bulging front. The skin there was smooth and round. 2 pale circles sat near the center, flat and milky. Only later did I accept that those were eyes that had never belonged to any skull. It didn't walk and it didn't slither. It moved by wrapping parts of itself around trunks, gripping with that slick skin, and hauling the rest of itself forward. Wherever it touched, it left those gray rings behind. Its underside dragged along the ground with a thick suction sound. Every chest along its length heaved as one. Every breath it took felt like it stole a piece of oxygen from the rest of the world. It saw the fire, or whatever passes for sight in those pale circles. It hesitated at the edge of the hollow and lifted the front a little higher. Then it inhaled. The breath went on and on. Smoke fled toward it in a dirty funnel. Flames leaned sideways, starved for air. For a second, the fire dipped like someone had set a lid over it. Then, with a rough whoosh, it flared twice as high. The creature flinched.
Yep. Guess it don't like that.
It surged forward. Parts of it skirted the edges of the flame, parts wrapped around nearby trunks and pulled. Where its skin touched bark near the fire, the gray residue started to bubble and darken toward black. Ray fired. The rifle cracked across the hollow. The bullet hit one of the heaving chests along its side. A heavy gout of thick dark fluid burst out and steamed when it hit the ground. The creature made a sound that was half scream and half breath, a drawn-out howl that rolled through every rib cage on its body. It turned toward us. Half its length still dragged toward the fire. The front swung in our direction. The pale circles widened. Tiny dark points bloomed in their centers, pupils that had been hiding until that moment. The next breath aimed straight at us. It hit like a wall. Cold slammed into my chest. Air ripped out of my lungs. My knees buckled. White spots blew out behind my eyes. My hands went numb. The rifle slipped from my grip and hit the dirt without me feeling it. Ray staggered but stayed up. His second shot went high and punched through a branch above the creature. The thing lunged. I saw the gas can sitting at the edge of the fire where Ray had tossed it after pouring. There was still a little slosh in the bottom. I grabbed it without thinking and hurled it into the flames just as the creature dragged a burning section of its body over the logs to reach us. The can blew. Fire leapt up the creature's underside like it had been waiting for the path. It raced along the slick trail it had left on the trunks, following the gray rings. Trees caught in a chain reaction. Heat slammed into us hard enough to shove us back a step. The creature screamed again, this time without pulling air. The sound vibrated straight through my bones. Every chest along its length spasmed. The smooth front slammed against the ground and ripped up great chunks of soil. It rolled and thrashed, trying to smother the flames in the mud of the ditch, dragging burning sections of itself across the hollow.
Run!
I didn't argue. I ran. We stumbled through the trees with smoke in our throats and burning branches dropping around us. My lungs felt raw and scraped. Behind us, the creature crashed and tore at the forest, dragging fire with it. The quiet woods we'd walked through turned into a roaring mess of heat and cracking wood. By the time we reached the service road, smoke had thickened into a low ceiling that turned the daylight orange. We broke out of the tree line coughing and half blind, clothes stinking like a barbecue that had gone very wrong. We threw ourselves into the truck. Ray started the engine with shaking hands and backed down the rutted lane, eyes snapping between the mirror and the road. I looked through the rear window. Through gaps in the trees, I saw the creature hauling its burning length into the ditch. Flames clung to it, stubborn and bright. Mud hissed, steam billowed in white sheets. The sounds it made were smaller now, less triumphant and more ragged. I didn't see it die. Fire crews showed up later, once the smoke column got tall enough to bother people who don't live out here. They pulled hoses and talked about lightning and careless campers and how fire runs strange when it finds old logging trash hidden under the duff. Ray kept his mouth shut. I kept mine shut too. Neither of us wanted to stand there and try to explain a centipede made of people. He drove me back to the cabin as the light started to go gray again. The tracks in my driveway were still visible, but the edges had softened under the day. He stopped in the lane and looked at him, then at my front door where Lauren waited with Emma tucked against her and one hand on the frame like she was ready to slam it if anything moved wrong. "You think that did it? You think it's gone?"
I think we heard it. Things that live long enough to get that strange learn fast when something hurts them. Smarter ones figure out how to go around whatever caused the pain.
You really believe it'll stay on the far side of the ridge?
I believe we taught it one lesson. Lessons like that wear off. Pain fades, hunger comes back. Somebody will have to remind it again one day. I hope it's not you.
Lauren waited by the door while I walked up. She didn't ask what we'd seen, not at first. She put a hand on my chest like she was checking that my heart still had a rhythm.
You came back.
I told you I would.
Did you stop it? Tell me we're safe.
I looked past her at Emma on the couch with her markers, tongue caught in the corner of her mouth in concentration. The house smelled like soup and wood smoke and a thin trace of bleach from where Lauren had cleaned the counters to keep her hands busy. We're safer than we were yesterday. That's as honest as I can be. That night I stood on the porch with the light off and listened to the woods. Every creak sounded like 100 bodies turning over in the dark. Every gust of wind felt like a breath that hadn't decided what shape it wanted to take yet. Somewhere far off, beyond the ridge, I heard a long, low intake of air. It might have been a train. It might have been a storm building. It might have been nothing more than my brain replaying the sound it had learned to hate. I don't argue with people who say they don't believe in monsters. I remember a wall of fused bodies dragging itself through the trees, hunting for the shape of my breath, and I let those people walk across their dark fields without saying a word. You made it back to the cabin. That already puts you ahead of most people. If this one got under your skin, hit like so I know what kind of thing to drag out of the dark next time. If you want to find your way back here, subscribe. That's how you keep the cabin on your map. Tell me in the comments where you had to pause or turn the volume down. That's how I know where the thing really grabbed you. And if you've got a friend who swears they don't scare easy, share this with them. See if they still say that after tonight. For now, lights are on, the door's unlocked, and you know the way back.